Hello, everybody. It's The Worm, and I'm back with Raging Loop. And today, we have a bit to talk about, I think. Last time was quite something, wasn't it? It was definitely, I would say, personally, that it was the most intense scene we've gotten thus far, or one of the most intense scenes. We talked about this in the comments a bit, but we've seen quite a few murders at this point. Well, I should say the aftermath of murders, and we've even been killed ourselves quite a few times. However, this was a first-person murder and subsequent mutilation of a body, and it was quite something. And that whole scene and the scenes that followed it really gave us much more of a look into our protagonist, Haruaki, than I think we've ever had before, both from his own admission and from his interaction with the deity that came to visit when he went back to his prefab. So let's try and work this out a bit. Looking back on it now, it's kind of funny to me, actually. When, after the whole event finished, the murder and mutilation, and when he got back to the prefab, I think I went off on I gave a little speech where I talked about why he was angry, because that was his main takeaway from that event. He said it several times how pissed off he was, and my immediate interpretation was, well, it was wrong. It was incorrect. And the reason why that's funny to me is that I think it was my own, well, knowing that he was angry was my interpretation of what that anger would mean, but it would be for me, not for him. And that, I think it lies, my interpretation lies a bit more in an empathetic light, as in considering the thoughts and feelings of other people. So what I said was something like, he was angry because both Haru and Kaori were not upset or hesitant about the murder in the slightest. They, in fact, cheered it on and applauded him for it and were completely happy with it. And even though Haruaki, convinced Kaori to go along with it, I still viewed it as that would be something to get upset about, them still going along with it so easily. And so thinking, I know I would be somewhat upset at that notion that someone could just so easily flip on a dime and suddenly be okay with murder. And so that was my initial interpretation, which was incorrect. And that made it all the more, I'm not sure what word to use here, disturbing, I guess, to get the reveal that no, that's not why Haruaki was angry at all. No, he didn't really. The reason why he cared about their reaction wasn't because he cared precisely what they thought or felt. Rather, the reason why he was angry was due to their reactions' effect on him. So it was a more selfish, self-centered view. So let's try to explore that a bit. I don't think I'm going to get this exactly right, but his So, essentially, what occurred after getting back to the prefab was he was visited by the deity that we've been kind of communicating with a bit, the one that it resides in Haru, seemingly. And we'll talk about the god in a little bit. We will. So yeah, let's just put the god aside for now because we got a whole lot of information on the god as well, which is very fascinating and interesting. But let's try to keep the conversation on Haruraki for a moment. So this god is able to see into Haruaki's mind, and I'm not sure we know exactly how much. At one point, the god referred to his anger as a color. And then also later said that, well, admitted to being able to read minds after Haruaki called her out on it. But let's again not focus on that right now. So the god was trying to understand what I'm trying to understand right now, which is why did Haruaki go on a rampage there? And let me check something real quick. Yeah, okay. And his response when questioned by the god as to why he went on a rampage. Well, specifically, she asked, because obviously he was angry about it. She felt that first. So she said, look, you could have just struck once and been done with it, or if you couldn't have done it, you could have handed it to one of the other two and they could have done it for you. Why go through with that? And his response was that, well, he needed them to stay normal, quote unquote. And the reason why he needed them to remain normal was, as he described, if people around him began to react unnormal or irrationally or differently, like if their morals get flipped, then by consequence, he too would change. Yeah. What did I say? Unnormal? Sorry. Abnormal would be the proper way to say that. So, his anger, therefore, was not... It did come from their reactions, but it was how their reactions would affect him that he was getting pissed off about. And I'm not sure exactly how to explain this, really. I think Lise tried to describe it... Well, I mean, we can throw out some terms like sociopath or psychopath. I tried to do a bit of research myself. Apparently, sociopathy and sociopath are... And again, this is just from a little bit of online searching, nothing in depth. But apparently, sociopathy is kind of an antiquated term in psychology. Psychopath is still used a bit more, but even then, apparently that's not the precise terminology that psychologists will use. But of course, in everyday speech, as laymen, as regular people, we still use those kinds of terms. So, unfortunately, what I found wasn't very helpful for describing precisely what may be going on here. But I would certainly think... I wouldn't jump to say specifically sociopathy or psychopathy, but I would certainly think that he exhibits some of the symptoms of that. Like he's not irrational, and he's not like some of the symptoms were irrationality and lack of planning, and he definitely doesn't have that. But this strange idea that he is somehow... it's as if he has no morals of his own. He's completely at the mercy of whatever group of people he happens to be with at the time. And again, that fact, or being reminded of that fact, makes him angry. So yeah, so I think we might have been giving some hints about this throughout the game. I know he's had... I struggle to think of specific examples off the top of my head right now, but I can recall feeling not entirely surprised by this revelation of Haraki's character. But it's definitely somewhat extreme. So again, I don't know whether to call him a sociopath or psychopath, but definitely something abnormal is happening, or it just describes how he is. And we know that he's been very hesitant to acknowledge anything supernatural throughout this whole experience, even when confronted with the looping and with supernatural events like meeting with a god. And we got a bit more expanding on that. He said that the things he doesn't understand makes him afraid, but the god said that, well, no, that might actually be excitement, and he may not really know how to differentiate the two, or maybe he doesn't want to differentiate it like that. So really, this whole, like, beyond just the murder itself and mutilation, that whole interaction afterward really paints Haruaki kind of in a pretty negative light for me. I mean, and what's interesting to me, and part of why I have this picture up here, is it's interesting to me because Haruaki has been saying that he's been seeing some of the same, or he's been... It's hard to confirm because we're not in Hashimoto-san's perspective, but Haruaki at least seems to think he's seeing some of the same attributes in Hashimoto. Now, again, we're not in Hashimoto's head, but Haruaki's explanation for that might be because he has apparently been in war zones and in other crazy situations before, so just maybe over time he's developed a similarly twisted frame of mind. But it's interesting. It's this is probably not the best way to say this, but it's almost like a predator noticing another predator or something. I think it's going too far to assume he's done evil, and even I don't think we can assume Haruaki has done evil in the past, but it's just, yeah, it's just his manipulations of people and his ability to put up a facade so easily really comes into focus now, I feel, and how he's managed to adapt to the situation, this crazy abnormal situation. It's, well, he's a bit abnormal himself. Of all the characters, it might be Mamiya who has the most grounded, realistic reactions out of everyone here, Yeah, I don't really know if I have anything else to say in particular, because again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an expert, so it would be asking a lot of me to try and nail down specifically what might be going on here. But hey, if you happen to be a bit more educated in that and you have your own opinion on what's going on here, I think this would be a good time to talk about it, because that was a lot we just got there. But certainly now that we've had this sort of confirmation of Haruaki's character, it's going to be interesting reading him now, because before, as was revealed by my immediate interpretation of what his thoughts were in the aftermath of what happened, I have this sort, it feels like he lacks empathy, right? So my initial attempts to interpret it that way, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore, So really, it's going to have to be, going forward, I'll have to give my thoughts on what happened, and because when I'm reading, I'm trying to get in the head of who I'm reading, right? So I want to try and, whether he's, you put on a bit of a, I'm not just reading this blankly, right? I'm trying to, if he's excited, I want to read it a bit more excitedly. But now I'm going to have to keep in mind potentially how he might be, he may not be, as empathetic as I thought he might be. So it is interesting that throughout all this, though, he still wants to, he's wanted to keep promises, stuff like that. So it's not like I think Haruaki's evil or anything. I don't think that's the case. It's just, he's just a bit warped. I think warped was an adjective that was used by the god last time. So it'll be, I'll be, I guess, attempting to shift the way I've been, my perspective while voicing him. Okay, sorry, bit rambly there at the end. It was just a lot to take in all at once. So we can also talk about the god. And this is more, rather than me trying to interpret things, this is more just a summary of what we know now. The god we met was the Badger, essentially. And she claimed to be the powerless one, the one that was an ancient deity in her own right, but was then subsumed into the greater god Shinai-sama. And that the bringers of corruption we see are actually her dogs that are at her beck and call, apparently. And she was indeed the one we saw at the doorway, and actually we can find it here. Right here. It was, this was what I guessed. Not at the time, but in the one intermission video I had where I tried to put forth theories of what was going on, this was definitely one of the ideas. The idea that it was Haru, because she was still alive at this point, and she was the only one that matched the sort of physical look here. This god is able to, as we said, sort of read emotions and read minds, and so that's how she's able to understand that he's going through this looping phenomenon. But she's not what was I about to say? She's not responsible for the looping, of course. I didn't think that, but I think that pretty much confirms she's not, if we had any doubt before. It's interesting that she claimed that she's the powerless one here, which would mean, remember, the other two she described was Shinai-sama, and then the third one she described was our enemy. So, I mean, the only other god I would think of is Mako. That she's the one I've been theorizing about this whole time as being another supernatural entity here. But because I definitely don't think Mako is Great Lord Shinai, but that would mean if Mako ends up being the third of this trinity of beings here, that would mean that she is the one that this god is describing as our enemy. Now, is she saying that because she knows that Mako is responsible for the looping, and thus, if we want to stop the looping, we would have to go against her somehow. I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly what's going on here or not. It's just, that's the only thing I could kind of think of in relation to what she said in the past. What else? Well, I guess the god is, this god is responsible for all those dead dogs we found. Haruaki did try to convince her to maybe team up, where Haruaki suggested, hey, let's go against Great Lord Shinai. You know, I'll put you back in power instead if you can help me get out of this situation. And she pretty much flatly rejected him. Because apparently she was, well, a god in the past, but she sounded a lot more demonic. Because apparently in the past she was up to no good. And so she said, hey, if you really would want me back, you'd have to annihilate a few villages and hang them all. And so, yeah, it sounds like it's probably a good thing that she was subsumed into Shinai-sama. At the end of the conversation, Haruaki called this god cute. I don't know how to interpret that scene and that little exchange. Also, apparently the reason why the god went out of her way to talk to us this night was because Haru was apparently worried about us in some way. Maybe not an extremely worried, but she was concerned enough that the god found it important enough to go visit us herself. So Haruaki said he's going to talk to her next at some point. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. How long have I been going for? Oh my goodness, I've been going on for quite a while. The only thing left to possibly talk about is we made the decision to kill Takumi. We still have to. We have to. I guess some people were saying, well, because this scene has been going on so long that this probably choosing Hashimoto is probably a bad end. We'll just have to go back and see at some point. Yeah, let's. I'm a bit. Let me get into the game, and we'll we may not do. Well, we'll do a few more scenes, and then I think we'll call it after this. Hang on. Okay. Should be back into it now. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's get back into this. Okay. The next morning came. As I'd expected, the wolf outfit and all the blood had vanished. That didn't mean it was all a dream, though. Takumi-san's mutilated corpse was soon discovered, shocking the whole settlement. That was when I noticed that the murder scene was full of wet footprints. They were the same ones left by the previous wolves, and I now understood why they were there. They'd also wore those wet costumes. They didn't even continue outside the house, though. Apparently, Great Lord Shinai took care of the costumes as well as the evidence. What a methodical god. I was probably the only one who could be so clear-headed. Tai-san took this especially hard. She refused food and instead just prayed at one edge of the dining hall. Kanzo-san was looking really wary too. First Chiemi, now Takumi-san. He was losing people he depended on one after another, and his reaction was only natural. As you'd expect, Yasunaga-kun had gone pale once more. The person who'd consoled him the previous day was now gone forever, after all. Then, There was Kaori-san. She looked shaken and had already broken 2 plates. Everyone assumed her state was caused by Takumi-san's death. They were close, after all, and everyone was sympathetic. I knew that she was actually just tense because she was planning to trap her sons and kill them, but I didn't say a word, of course. Breakfast was over, and we finished washing the dishes. Kanzo-san prepared to go clean up Takumi-san and
Yasu, tetsudae.
said that, which made a chill go down my spine. I had no idea what kind of info the two would exchange if they had a secret chat.
わかりました。
待て、俺が行く。
That was why Yoshitsugu-kun's words were a big help.
こんなふぬけよりは役に立つ。
来い。
義継、お願いね。
ババアはそこのふぬけ野郎によく言い聞かせとけよ。
安永、ちょっと来なさい。
It was going great. Yoshitsugu-kun returned from cleaning up, and Kanzo-san went patrolling, but Yasunaga-kun and Kaori-san still hadn't returned. A bit worried, I finished cleaning up and relaxed when...
春明様、少々よろしいでしょうか。
Before moving on, just to a bit more recap, it was the case that the plan going forward here would be for, it was for Kaori to talk with Yasunaga and... Oh, what was it? I remember Haruaki telling her, you know, don't give anything away to let him know that you know Takumi was the snake. Oh, drat. I don't remember the specific plan. Well, I'm sure they'll probably go over it again. Otherwise, after I finish here, I'm going to have to go back and check again. I can't remember specifically what... I do remember that Kaori-san had a part to play here. I can't remember specifically what she was trying to do. She was trying to convince Yasunaga-kun of something. I just can't remember what specifically. Okay, let's move on. Someone called out to me.
メイコのことなのですが。
Yes, this is something I probably should have mentioned last time. Did I mention it last time? I don't remember, but I'll mention it again just in case. So Mako's the badger. That's crazy. And I don't know how we're going to get much use out of that, considering she seems to have misunderstood what it is she's supposed to do and ended up voting for us, I think, was what happened. So, yeah, Haruaki must be thinking about how it's less how to use her and more how to prevent her from doing more damage, I think. But I guess we'll find out. Nope, it looks like he'd slipped his mind. That was an issue I'd nearly forgotten. A short distance from everyone else here, around 10 steps away from Tai-san and her prayers, we started whispering to each other.
やっぱり反抗的なんですか？
はい。前まで着替えも一人でしなかったのがするようになったのは良いのですが。
食事も離れて食べてましたね。
It was cute, though.
ええ。それで二言目にはお姉ちゃんをくくる、房幸さんをくくると。
小さい子が殺す連呼してるわけですよね。どこのドキュンファミリーだ。
ドキュン。
ああ、いや、外ではそういう育て方をされた子供もいなくはないので。
まあ、
しかし、何なんでしょうね。
わかりません。いえ、実は心配が。メイコは橋本様がおっしゃっていた無地ななのではないでしょうか。
There. She'd noticed it too, and she probably wasn't alone.
そうかもしれません。狼におもねった人。だから、人をくくれと言ってるのか。
Yeah, remember, the badger doesn't know who the wolves are, so, yeah.
神藤吉には狼を善とし、他のお使いと休みず黄泉に属すとする伝えもあります。
それを聞かされて、メイコは寝返った？
かもしれません。あるいはただ私や春明様がメイコの機嫌を損ねてしまっただけかも。
心当たりはないな。でも、ひとまずは放置しても大丈夫でしょう。彼女の言うことが宴の参加者に影響を与えることはまずない。
そんな楽観視していていいのでしょうか。メイコも宴の参加者として一票を持っています。
よくはないですが、しかしルールに従うなら彼女を宴から除外する唯一の方法はくくることで。
皆様の宴の機会を奪ってしまうならば、あるいは私が。
That would be good for us.
やめましょう。それは人の票を無駄に1票減らしてしまいますし、第一残酷に過ぎます。
わかりました。メイコにお慈悲をいただきありがとうございます、春明様。
リカ子さんはどうしてあの子にそこまで肩入れなさるんです？ただの迷子でしょうに。
身寄りのない子供を引き取って育てるのも植松家の役目でしたので。
そうなんですか。
はい。植松家は長者家の中では血筋をさほど重視せず、孤児や身寄りのない者を積極的に迎え入れてきました。
Were you an orphan, Rikako? I could only assume they needed more bedroom women servants to fulfill their evening duties.
リカ子さんは伝統を大事になさるんですね。
はい。そのようなことしかない世界で生きてまいりましたので。
This whole area was a separate realm built around the worship of Great Lord Shinai. From my perspective, she was very unfortunate to have been born here. But perhaps, from her point of view, being a city boy without the pillars of faith and tradition to support me, was far more unfortunate. I couldn't deny that a world where the way to live and die hadn't changed for centuries could be easier to live in. A well-balanced aquarium didn't need much to stay stable. It just had to continue following an already established process. However, in the real world, closed systems were extremely hard to maintain. Whether animals, diseases, lineages, ideals, the system was threatened by countless things. In liberated societies, however, the people had to develop a strong will, with a blend of common sense and individuality, and constantly conflict with others. Well, not like that couldn't crumble as a result of outside influences either, but there was no denying that it was tougher than a secluded, happy society. Open societies exchange certain happiness for the practical, universal simplicity we call money. That reasoning was probably a bit shaky. Anyway, this settlement, as well as Fujiyoshi, would eventually fall victim to our aging society. Without a single person here, Great Lord Shanai would, just like the Badger, or the nameless mountain god, be forgotten and vanish. The Uematsu, her included, would simply vanish faster than the rest. Thus, what I felt for her right now was merely sympathy for something facing its inevitable end. A worthless sentiment you could have about anything. None of that happened. I'd thrown away even Chiemi.
春明様、いかがなさいました？
どうかしてましたか僕。
怖い顔をなさっていました。
あはは、すみません。
I had to keep a tight grip on my conscience. Without deciding what to do about Meiko, I returned to the dining hall, where I found Yasunaga-kun and Kaori-san. Yasunaga-kun seemed a bit better than before, but only slightly. Kaori-san looked the same, though. I couldn't tell if she'd succeeded in getting Yasunaga-kun to not talk about Takumi-san. There we go. That was the plan. Because we know Takumi-san told Yasunaga-kun he was the snake, we wanted to make sure Yasunaga-kun did not bring that up. I think it was something like, tell Yasunaga-kun if he does that, it would make him a target, or something like that. And I want to say, did Haruaki tell Kaori to try and convince Yasunaga that it was Kanzo who was the wolf? For some reason that's in my head, but I'm not sure.
もうお昼の準備を始めましょうか。今日もすぐに宴でしょうから。お釜洗ってもらえるかしら。
わかりました。
I opened the metal pot I'd grown used to using and found a piece of paper inside. Takumi didn't tell Yasunaga anything about being a snake. He simply consoled Yasunaga about Chiemi-chan's death and talked about how they could proceed with the feast. I'm not sure I believe that. Like, this is well, I don't even know how to consider what saying this means. Like, first initial thoughts that just immediately popped up. What if Yasunaga simply didn't tell Kaori? Now you might think, well, that's crazy. It's his mom. Well, Yasunaga has just lost Chiemi and Takumi, two people he cares about greatly. And, you know, presumably they haven't caught any wolves yet. He still has to consider 3 people, plus maybe the badger, so maybe 4 people. What if he is considering the idea that his mother could be a wolf, and then just simply didn't tell her that Takumi told him? Maintaining my poker face, I brought the pot to the sink and filled it with water, getting the paper all wet. The fountain pen letters quickly became unreadable. I then used a scrubbing brush to quickly tear it apart, rolled it into a ball, and threw it in the trash. Was Kaori-san aware just how risky that was? Anyway, that info just now was extremely important. Takumi-san hadn't told him about being a snake? What was I to make of that? The first time, Takumi-san had revealed he was a snake on the very first day. Why would he be so careful now? What if he wasn't the snake? What if Yasunaga-kun lied to his mother as a precaution? Yeah, there we go. Crap. Kaori-san's note didn't tell me anything about how she'd asked about it, or the nuance of the replies. But this definitely could be a good time to come out as the snake. What was I to do now? I thought about that for every second of lunch. I did think I kept a normal expression on my face, at least. I took far too long to decide that, regardless of the circumstances, I needed to claim a role.
今日の宴を始めますよ。
Let's not, Ty. Let's save this for next time, because the feast is going to be a huge thing on its own, and I am not ready to start that right now. So let's maybe some closing thoughts here. Yeah, my immediate thought was definitely one of the things Haruaki said, that maybe Takumi lied, because we know for a fact that he is a snake. We saw that in the whole hand-raising fiasco. Yeah, I guess I'll just reiterate just how it's strange. I don't know what this says about me, but, you know, I guess when I'm trying to voice a protagonist, I think I've done this, like, in a couple of the games I've Let's Played so far, but, you know, you put a little of yourself when you're voicing someone. At least that's my sense. It's not like I've done this a lot, but that's sort of what I found I've done. And so now I feel like I'm not able to do that, because Haruaki's point of view is just a bit more alien to me than another person's normally would, you know? His sense of values is, you know, it's divorced from any regular set of morality. It's so strange, the idea that his morality is just a reflection of the people. I mean, there's something that could be said about that for, you know, society writ large, but I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think. Well, we know sociopaths, psychopaths. There are some people who they don't have empathy. That's something they lack. But for most people, we, you know. And myself, I don't mind admitting, have a sense of empathy. So it's a bit harder now to read him and trying to get in that frame of mind, if that makes sense. Because yeah, now you have to consider everything he's saying in that way. Like the thing he said this episode, where like, can I, is it good, does it go back this far? Let me check. Here. Like this seems extremely cold to me now. Like, whereas before, maybe I wouldn't be sure how to read this and might come up with a more charitable way to interpret this series of lines here, but the Uematsu who are included would simply vanish faster than the rest. Thus, what I felt for her right now was merely sympathy for something facing its inevitable end. A worthless set. Sorry, I need a drink of water. Ugh, throat's dry. A worthless sentiment you could have about anything. And then we saw the flashback to Rikako sacrificing herself. None of that had happened. I'd thrown away even Chiemi. I mean, that's pretty bleak, right? That was pretty bleak. This just series of lines right here. Like, you know, going throughout this game, I did have this notion that he really did care about Chiemi and Rikako, and obviously he cares in the sense that they both, well, certainly Chiemi has a great effect on him, or seems to have one, but now yeah, I mean, this is just, like, for me, it just kind of sucks to read this, you know? And I don't mean it's I don't mean sucks as in it's bad or badly written. No, not at all. It's just, it hurts a bit because being in if I was in a similar position, I mean, considering just how much Rikako did last time for us, what she was willing to do, and then just to see our main character just totally be willing to dismiss that, it, you know, that's harsh. That's really harsh. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really interested in what you guys have to say about this, because I mean, you guys have had a lot of great thoughts thus far, so I'm sure plenty of you have great thoughts on it as well, from perspectives and points of views that I may not have considered whatsoever. So I'll be eagerly awaiting for that. But yeah, I did say, I think in one comment, how if that last episode is setting the tone for things to come in this sort of last, I don't know, third of the game, it's gonna be more draining to go through this than it has been in the past. But I mean, that doesn't mean I'm any less willing to read. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's going to be a bit tougher for me. But I'm going to do it. Don't worry about that. It's just, oh, yeah. Okay. In any case, I hope you're all doing well. I've been The Worm. This has been Raging Loop. Next time, we will, after some recap probably, begin the next feast, where we'll have to see what we can get out of it, and if we can escape another hanging. One last thing, if any of you think I should, well, we don't, no, I was going to ask if we should go back and maybe pick Hashimoto and see if that's a bad end, but maybe not. It might be too early to do that. Okay. So yeah, have a good one.